Hello, 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 welcome, welcome. I am grateful to be the very last talk before conference ends. I know this isn't usually nap time for me, so I'm gonna try and keep this lively, keep it entertaining. Hopefully it's a little bit informative. But my name is Aaron Mitchell, I'm the president at Hero Devs. And we're talking, I asked ChatGPT to give me the most boring talk title it could come up with, and this is what it generated. But today we're going to be talking about old code, when it becomes a liability, how we manage tech debt, and aging open source. So a little bit about me. I have about 12 plus years of product management experience. I'm a product manager by trade, and that means, well, we got some ribs towards product management later on in the presentation. So any PMs in the audience? Okay, good. I've done, in my career, we've done about, I tried to count, it was just over 30 migrations and upgrade projects from old versions of open source to new versions. I'm a dad to 3 boys. My oldest son's in the audience right here. I enjoy football, basketball, tennis, mountain biking, and recently kite surfing. So I'm looking for a friend in the triangle to go kite surfing with. Anyone into that or want to get into it? No, bummer. All right, we're striking out here. And I still have all 4 of my wisdom teeth, so it tells you a lot about me. About Hero Devs. Some of you probably walked by the booth. It's the really creepy one with all of the animatronic skeletons. But you may have asked yourself, what does this company do? And the short version is that we secure versions of end-of-life open source software for big companies. Some of our more popular ones are Angular, AngularJS, Spring, Node, Tomcat, Struts, Bootstrap, .NET, Vue, Drupal, and many, many more. So that's us. We just closed a big growth equity round, $125 million equity round, and that was very, very exciting. We have over 1,000 customers. There's a lot of people out there running really, really old software, and we're a fully remote team. We have just under 100 employees. Also, we are hiring a lot. So if you are looking to come be a part of a fast-moving startup that's on a really hockey stick trajectory right now, check out our website, herodevs.com/careers. Would love to see your application. All right, so I want to first talk about a little bit about me. So this is a truck that I used to own. It looks a lot bigger. It looks really cool on the outside, but this truck had a big problem on the inside, and this truck had a transmission that was going out. But I was a product manager by trade, and so, it doesn't really matter, like, if there's a few bugs here and there, as long as it looks nice, let's ship it. That was kind of my mentality with this truck. And so we were running on it for a long, long time. I didn't want to get the transmission replaced. It was a $4,000 repair. And so, like every sleazy product manager, I went to a dealership and sold it to them. They didn't know there was a bad transmission, but I got a call from them a couple weeks later. I didn't answer it, but I think it was they were calling about the transmission that they had discovered. So this is an analogy for how software works in our organization, right? We have, we've got an application, it's working great, there's a few bugs we know about, but I don't want to pay the bill to rip out the guts, right? To upgrade the guts. And so this happens all the time in enterprise application development, where you develop this tech debt, this technical debt that eventually you're going to have to pay that debt down. Right now, we're at a very interesting crossroads in open source, and there's a growing problem in open source. This graph shows how many, on average, how many open source components the average commercial code base is running. And you can see in 2024, This is from the Synopsys State of Open Source report. In 2024, we were sitting right around 500. In 2025, that number almost doubled to 911 is the average number of open source components running in a commercial code base. Couple this with the total number of CVEs that are reported to MITRE on an annual basis, and you can see in 2024, we were just under 40,000 CVEs reported to MITRE. So we look at these two graphs and we start to think to ourselves, okay, what's going on? What caused this huge spike in the use of open source in tech stacks? And what's causing all of these new CVEs, these new vulnerabilities that are getting reported on these open source components? Well, this is another, I don't think this statistic surprises anybody, but GitHub ran their inaugural 2024 developer survey. They found that 97% of respondents have used AI tools to actually write code at work. So what we're starting, why this matters. What we're starting to see is that the use of AI is actually causing commercial code bases to get extremely bloated, right? AI is pulling in all of these different components, and if AI is good at a lot of things, one thing it's very good at is knowing exactly what open source libraries are out there to shortcut functionality that you're trying to build into your application. But if I put my engineering manager hat on and I think about what does this mean for my job as an engineering leader, it means I have now almost double the number of libraries that I have to keep up to date in my tech stack. I have way more compatibility challenges because as I upgrade one version, it might break compatibility with another. I've got a larger security attack surface area because I have more code in my code base, and I have a lot more noise from my security scanners, my inventory scanners, my configuration managers to distract from the important signals of when there is actually a security risk in my application. So bottom line is I spend more time maintaining, less time developing. So this is a smoking hot take from Aaron Mitchell. Write this down. This is going to happen. This is my prophetic, this is me as a prophet looking into the crystal ball, telling all of you what's about to happen. With the advent of AI, the accumulation of tech debt in the next 2 to 3 years will rise to its highest levels in history. Okay? I didn't get this from anywhere, but this is what I believe to be true. And you're going to see it happen. So anyone want to bet on this, let me know. We'll talk afterwards. I'll put $100 on this take. Okay? This is a flaming hot take. And all of you, because you're in this session right now, you now have an edict that you have to follow, right? You were just blessed with this prophetic information that I shared with you, and now you have a responsibility to take that back to your company. Be the righteous steward of your application. Never give in. Do not surrender. This is your edict coming out of this talk, all right? But there are wolves, okay? You have to go and make sure that your business knows the risk that they're taking on as they continue to add more and more open source, as they continue to accelerate the accumulation of tech debt. But there are wolves out there, and who are they? They're the stewards of your applications today that want to lead you astray. They don't care about the tech debt. They just care about the roadmap that they have committed to the executives. So who are these wolves? The product managers. Did any product managers come in since I started this? There we go, we got one. The wolf in sheep's clothing, everybody, the PM, right? I will tell you as a PM, we don't care about, this is what I would do. If a developer came to me and I had just made this beautiful roadmap that I had presented to the executive team, you know, I got a standing ovation on it. They're all pumped about what we're going to do. I just committed the engineering team to work double time over the next 4 weeks to get this done. And all of a sudden, an engineer raises their hand and they say, hey, by the way, we've got this out-of-date thing that we're running, and we got to update it. It's actually pretty vulnerable. Like, we need to do something. As the PM, what do we do? It goes in, perfect, I'll put it on the backlog, right? It goes on the backlog, and then eventually everyone forgets about it, and we know it's never going to get done, right? That's the classic response. So I need all of you, beware of the wolves. Those are the PMs. They don't want this to happen. Okay, so how do you save your company from product managers? 5 steps, okay? First, you have to get a good picture. What does my end-of-life profile look like? By the way, please take a picture of this and then send it to your PM, right? Please do that. It would make me so happy. First, you got to get, what does the end-of-life picture look like in your organization? Then you prioritize what's the scariest thing. Here, where are the biggest threats? Make a game plan of how you're going to address them, get the business on board, and then save the company. Okay? This isn't rocket science, guys. All right, so let's talk first about get the end-of-life picture. So I want you to get your cameras ready because I'm about to give you 2 really cool resources that you should be aware of, and they're in the form of a QR code. Okay? The first one, let's talk about getting the end-of-life picture. This is actually, it sounds easy. This is actually very difficult, or it was very difficult until you see what I'm about to show you. But you have to know what in my application is end-of-life, how far end-of-life is it, meaning how many major, minor upgrades am I from an in-support version, how many vulnerabilities are on this library, and how severe are those vulnerabilities, right? These are all things that I have to be able to answer to get a complete picture of my end-of-life profile. Well, Hero Devs, this is a really cool product that we've been working on for over a year. We acquired a company back in December that got us a big head start. But we are actually publishing, it's a free tool. It's called the End-of-Life Dataset. And this is a tool that you can use. You upload an SBOM or you run the CLI tool, and it will actually give you this view of what's in your stack, have we scanned, and what has reached end of life. This has been an immense engineering challenge to actually get all this data together into one spot. And it will tell you all those 3 questions. What packages are you running that are end of life? How far away are you from the supported version? And then are there any known vulnerabilities on those packages that you should be aware of? And if you need to double click on that, you can right inside this tool. Okay? And then it also has a column that says, can Hero Devs come save the day by providing you with a commercially supported version of this so you don't have to press pause on your roadmap and migrate immediately. You can migrate on your own time. So if this is a tool that you think would be interesting or would at least give you better visibility into how much tech debt am I accumulating inside of my organization, you can scan this QR code right here, and this will take you to the page where you can sign up for our beta. This isn't publicly released yet, but this is a free tool. It will be free forever, and excited to get it into your hands and get your feedback. So yeah, the way this works, upload your SBOM, use a CLI, see what's end of life, how far end of life is it, vulnerabilities with severity, and this is supported in all major open source languages. All right? Okay. The second thing I want to talk about when it comes to getting this end of life picture is why. Why is it so difficult? And do we have any open source maintainers in the room? Any open source contributors? Cool, awesome. So yeah, so you maintain a library. There's not a standard out there of how to communicate a support policy to the community using your open source tools. And so some authors, they'll put, these are the versions that I'm supporting, these are the versions that I'm not supporting. If they're really, really good, they might actually give you advance notice to say, hey, once I release version 7, I'm not supporting version 6 for more than 12 months before you're out of luck. But most maintainers, they don't think twice about putting any kind of support policy in place. And frankly, they shouldn't have to. Like, you adopted it, it's free software, they should be able to do whatever they want. That's why it's very hard to get a holistic picture of what is end of life, is because there's not a data source on the internet that actually tells you when an author has marked this as end of life or not, or a lot of times they just don't go to the trouble of marking it as end of life. Hero Devs, as part of the growth equity round that I mentioned we raised, we've also set aside $20 million in an open source sustainability fund. What this means is if you own an open source project, there's free money on the table. And all we need you to do is go apply on our website to get a grant from Hero Devs, and then you will be asked to just update your project to follow end of support, end of life best practices. Once you do that, you get free money. It's legitimately that easy. So please go and if you maintain an open source project or you know somebody that is maintaining an open source project, please point them to this resource. We want to give this money out. It's earmarked for this very purpose. So please go and check that out. All right, step 2, saving your company from the product managers. Go and prioritize the scaries. Now, there's a lot of ways you can do this, but a really, really simple way to look at this is, now I've got a picture of what's end of life in my organization, and what do I need to do about it? Well, draw up this 2x2 matrix. It's very easy. What does my exposure look like for a given library? Meaning, are there vulnerabilities on it, right? If there are vulnerabilities, how severe are those vulnerabilities? Does it have direct access to my database or sensitive information? Is it on a login page, right? That's more scary than if it's running on some obscure feature that nobody uses. So you want to be able to assess, how exposed am I with this end-of-life event? And then the other thing that you're going to look at is, what's the difficulty of upgrading, right? Is it an easy bump to go from version X to version Y? Or is it going to take some engineering months to get this thing done? Or sometimes it takes even years to get it done. And this matrix, this is, by the way, this is not a prescriptive matrix. Like, you're going to come up with what you want to do in each of these cases. But this is, with our customers that we're seeing on a daily basis, this is typically how they think about prioritizing the scary stuff, right? If I've got something that I'm greatly exposed to, it's an easy upgrade, just get the migration done. And if it's going to be maybe a couple months to get it done, you may want to think about looking at commercial support so that I can get secure now while I upgrade. If it's going to be a more hairy upgrade, then we would recommend, again, I'm biased, I'm from Hero Devs, we sell you this stuff, but we would recommend getting on to some kind of commercial support so that you can rest easy knowing, while we're doing this migration, we can do it the right way and my application is still secure. If difficulty is really high but exposure is low, it's kind of up to your own internal policies, dealer's choice on that one. And then if it's an easy upgrade but you're not exposed too much, we'd recommend just getting the migration or the upgrade done as quickly as possible. All right? Okay, we're already on step 3. We're cruising through this, y'all. All right, step 3, saving the company from the product managers. Make a game plan. So you've got a couple options when you think about, what are we going to do about this? First option, put it on the backlog. Don't do anything. Roll the dice. Don't recommend this one necessarily. Second option, get commercial long-term support. Third option, migrate or plan a migration. And we would typically recommend that the second and third options go hand in hand together. There's a fourth one here, by the way, that's not on this slide. If your company has the wherewithal to internally support the library, and you want to dedicate an engineer's time to just maintain, a fork of Spring Boot or something, you're more than welcome to do that, and that is a viable option. It is very resource intensive and requires extreme expertise in that technology. So, and then this is kind of an example of how you might think about laying out a game plan. Top priority, Spring Boot 2.7. I've got nine CVEs on it. 2 of them are critical. I got high exposure in my application. We got to get this one done. We got to get this one taken care of. I've got jQuery 2.3. It's on an obscure page on our website. It doesn't touch our database. It's got 3 CVEs, but I'm not really exposed to it. I can put that on the backlog, right? So this is an example of what a game plan could look like here. Step 4, got to get the business on board and be able to speak the language of the business. So as you're doing this, I gave a talk on this last year at All Things Open about how to convince your boss that it's time to upgrade, to get rid of your technical debt. But I would just say, keep in mind, make sure that you're not over-engineering the explanation of why this needs to happen. So for instance, on the left here, instead of saying our AngularJS is end of life and there are 8 outstanding CVEs on it we need to migrate, that doesn't mean anything. Say, we're exposed to several high-severity security vulnerabilities because of an old library. We need to start planning how to get off of it, right? Easy stuff, but you'd be surprised at how this subtle change tends to tickle the brain of executives. Another one, instead of saying, I know I estimated the migration would take 3 weeks, and now it's been 6 months, but I think we're really close. You're an engineer, right? Like, you got to make sure that we're using the PMs for their job, which is to take the blame. Instead, say, hey, Aaron has changed the scope at least 27 times. If it weren't for them, we'd be done, right? Okay, so just be smart about how you communicate to the business, to self-preservation. That's what we're all about here, right? We're trying to save this company, and the PMs are getting in the way, so, under the bus they go if needed, right? Yep, exactly. All right. All right. Guys, I am cruising through this talk. I think we're going to end like 20 minutes early because I only have 2 slides left. Last step is to save the company from the PMs. You did it. You saved the company. So good on you. Great work. You did it. Guys, that's my talk. I thought this was going to fill 45 minutes, but I grossly overestimated. PMs don't have, that's what we do, right? We grossly underestimate. Yep. So that's what we did here. But I will gladly take, we have some extra time, so any questions or any comments, I'd also would love, if you have like a tech debt story or a migration story, then I would love to hear that. In fact, we're starting to do case studies and publishing them on our website of like interesting migration stories as a resource back to the community. And so if you have anything that you would love to share, connect with me on LinkedIn, send me an email, and I'd love to connect and learn more about it. But yeah, any questions that I can answer? Yeah, here. Yep.
I know that Node.js is, suggested adding that in the CV information. Not a big fan of that. I think the 2 are kind of separate.
Yep.
So is the goal hopefully to have sort of like an industry-wide database that has, for all these open source projects, this is, these are the versions that are officially tagged as end of life. And if so, have you guys talked to some of the larger foundations such as EASF and ECLIPSE and stuff like that?
Yeah.
To hopefully have them follow along and provide that sort of incredibly useful information to this database?
Yeah, great question. So the question is, is there an effort to standardize how end of life is treated across open source? And if so, what do those efforts look like, and how is Hero Devs tying in? So there is an effort to do this, and I'm trying to remember the name of the initiative, and it's escaping me right now, but there's actually an initiative that has, Red Hat, Microsoft, big open source contributors that are coming together and trying to create a set of standards that can be followed around end of life. Frankly, the progress has felt slow. It's been very, very slow. And I think the challenge, anytime you create a new standard, is that you're just adding one more standard that may or may not get followed. Our intention with the sustainability fund was to actually see if we could drive adoption by incentivizing it with the open source maintainers and giving them money to actually follow a standard. Once the, I think it's Open EOX, I think is what it's called, is the initiative. But once that standard gets a little further along, our plan is to kind of piggyback on top of that. But for now, there isn't really anything that's guiding the industry in this. It is a really big challenge because of that. Yeah, great question. Other questions? Yeah.
All right, so listing out all these CVEs, one thing I don't see in a lot of these tools is figuring out if they matter.
Yeah.
Sometimes you have a high CVE in a subsystem that hasn't been run since like the 90s.
Yep. Yeah. So your question is, what do I do about, how do you mitigate the noise of scanners that are showing a ton of CVEs, but they may or may not actually matter or have an impact? Yeah, great question. So I think as you go back to the slides that are showing the number of CVEs that have been reported over time, we can see that it's getting noisier and noisier out there, and there's more components and open source libraries to maintain than ever before. So this is a growing problem. There's a standard called VEX that if you're in security, you probably have heard of it, VEX, vulnerability, I can't remember what it enumerates, but essentially what it does is it is a way to take an SBOM and then annotate an SBOM and determine whether or not each component is actually like whether it matters in the software stack, essentially. And it gives a description of how it's being used and how significant a CVE reported on a library will actually affect the application and how exposed you are to a given CVE. So there are standards that are coming out that you'll probably see more and more of. And imagine that it's going to start with the security scanners, the sneaks, the black ducks of the world that are going to help surface this information and make the chatter more meaningful and help you kind of find the signal from the noise. But there's also, the EU has the Cyber Resilience Act there's some new enforcement that's coming online next August, and that's driving the industry pretty quickly actually towards the adoption of the use of VEX as a way to get a better picture of your security posture. So yeah, great question. Any other? Yeah.
I don't have a lot of background on this, but is there a distinction between the CVE databases that the U.S. government funds versus MITRE and EU? And then like a CVE database got defunded, but the government here,
Yeah.
like what do you do to monitor CVEs?
Yeah. So the U.S. government currently funds MITRE, and that is the U.S.'s official database of vulnerabilities. The EU does have their own CVE database as well. I think there was a scare recently where the contract with the U.S. government, where they were going to, I think it was $21 million that the government was paying to maintain this database as a grant. That contract lapsed, and it was right when everything was getting doged, and it was scary. It was a big scare inside of the cybersecurity industry. They ended up renewing the contract, and all was well. But what I imagine will happen is if there ever is a case where MITRE gets defunded, there were immediately a lot of parties that raised their hand and said, "Hey, we will be the ones to carry the torch." I don't have a good answer. We don't really know how it's going to emerge. I think it's going to have to be like a neutral entity that's actually doing it. I think if you were to if Sneak were to do it or Black Duck, there's obviously some conflict of interest there. So yeah, it's a good question. There is a lot of uncertainty around it, and hopefully the MITRE continues to get funding so that it's never an issue. Yeah. By the way, we Hero Devs we're working closely with MITRE to help figure out how we would drive better awareness and visibility into end-of-life problems specifically, and see if we can use that as a vehicle to actually drive better awareness across the industry. Any other questions? All right. Well, thank you all for coming today. Sorry to give you some time back in your afternoon, but I hope you've enjoyed the conference. Please, if you have any questions, comments, or want to connect, come up, and I'd love to meet all of you. But thank you for coming.